Today's guest is Caleb Ryan, Canadian filmmaker from Calgary, currently living in Montreal. We met at the TIFF Filmmaker Lab. So I thought it would be cool to talk about it and maybe give some insights to people who have never done a kind of industry program like that to give them some insight. So, how would you describe the TIFF Lab?
How would I describe the TIFF Lab? It's I believe it was 5 days, right? Was it 5 days of mentorship through filmmakers, industry people, of course, all the other filmmakers. That was like one of the most valuable. Like you go there and you're like, wow, you get to get this mentorship from like Oscar winners, and talks from Palme d'Or winners and Sundance winners. But there was also incredible value from just speaking to other filmmakers that are in the same position as you or above or below. Just thinking about it now, it was a wicked experience. It was good.
Obviously, neither of us thought we would get in. So, can you tell me a little bit about your process for applying? What was going through your head? At this point, you had produced and directed and written and edited.
No, not edited, not edited. No.
So, at this point, when you were applying for the TIFF Lab, you'd already produced, directed, written, and sold your first feature film to Mongrel. Had you sold it at that point?
Yes, I think so. It wasn't released yet. Or maybe it was released. I think it was. Yes, I think it was.
Okay.
Maybe.
So that's kind of where you were. You were working on your second feature film and you applied to the TIFF Lab.
Yeah.
I assume that you didn't think you were going to get in. What was your mind space when you were applying to the TIFF Lab?
Yeah, and I'd also like to hear what your take on it as well. So there's a few things. Unlike a bunch of the other filmmakers, who some of them were pretty seasoned when it came to the festival circuit and their films. After I finished film school, yeah, I made a short film, but it never went to like festival circuits or anything. It was like it won an award for like the best Alberta short film, but it wasn't like exhibited in film festivals or anything like that. So afterwards, I made this film. That one went to film festivals. That was really my first foray into that whole world, and then came the next steps afterwards. And I'm like, okay, obviously I knew about the TIFF Lab. It's a very prestigious lab. I'm like, okay, I have this film, but it's a horror film too. I used to describe it as a drama that devolves into a horror. I can't kid myself. It's a horror film. And just from that alone, I was like, is that really, would I even get in with something like that? A, my only experience is the film that I made myself. And B, is that it might not be something that is, something that might not be as prestigious, right? The subject matter. So yeah, got in. And then I was like, okay, cool. Well, it wasn't just cool. I was over the moon. My dad is from Newfoundland, so we were visiting family, and like, there's like a video actually of like the moment, like I'm on my phone, and I'm like, what? And it was insane. We're on the beach, the ocean was spraying. It was awesome. But yeah, so we went to the program, and I never really felt imposter syndrome really before, right? It's like, I went to film school, and I went to like, it was usually amongst my peers, right? Even the film, you know what I mean? But when I went to the Filmmaker Lab, these are now filmmakers that are like the creme de la creme, and that were at Cannes, Berlin, TIFF, and hearing them speak about film, I was like, whoa! I'm like, I'm here too. Like, it was, and it was nice to feel that I wasn't the only person that felt this way. A lot of people felt the same way, but yeah, it was just incredible to take part in that. And yeah, I would like to hear what your thoughts about how, from your end, the whole thing.
What I can say that I think is maybe unique about my experience getting into the TIFF Lab was my day job at that point was working at Shopify. I was running one of their YouTube channels, and it was summer 2022. And I was on my way back from vacation in Barcelona. And on the flight back, I got laid off from Shopify because they reorged and they laid off 10% of the staff. And I was on the flight and I got Wi-Fi to work, but I got laid off when we took off. And then I landed and I got an email saying I'd gotten into the TIFF Lab. So it was a really discombobulating time for me in general, but I was kind of lucky that it happened that way. As for attending the lab, I remember they provided like a private screening of all these films that we're screening at TIFF, so we could screen the films privately in this theater in the TIFF Bell Lightbox, and then we'd get to have a kind of private Q&A with the directors, and we had the context of their latest film to inform that discussion, which was so cool. I remember that in particular because I really loved Clement Virgo's brother, and getting to hear him talk with that fresh was cool. I definitely identify because my filmography is all over the place. Like I've done doc, drama. Now I'm working on a sports film. I'm working on a horror satire. And I definitely identify with what you're saying about like there being almost a sense of shame when you're working in genres that aren't like heavy drama in a foreign language. I think especially here in Quebec, there's like this very art house sensibility that very much looks down on projects that are not like super artsy fartsy. It's like, oh, this film can make money, so we're not going to invest in it. Was there a particular mentor or Q&A session or private session that stood out as like a cool thing?
Yeah, there's a couple, right? It was like I'm saying, the experience was invaluable. In terms of, maybe I'll try tackling different aspects of it. So when you're in the program, something that is so good is that you take your pitch, basically what you have, and it's still very rough. Everyone's is very rough still, and you are pitching it to people constantly. You're pitching it to your mentors, and you're getting feedback instantly from everybody, and things change as you go. You're like, okay, does that work? Does that work? Does that work? This is why, as a side note, is that if you have an idea and it's in its incipient stages, you should be presenting it to people. You should be, because a lot of times you have these ideas. I have ideas all the time. Are they worth pursuing? Maybe not all the time, right? Right? Pitch them to people, right? And get their feedback, real world feedback, and you can see what things interest them and what they don't. And with this lab, it was the same thing, except you're getting it from like people who have done incredible things in film. And one of those people is Ramin Barani, right? And I'm giving him the story, and he one of the things he told me, which is very catered for me, because it was all these I had a big set of characters, like I'm Robert Altman or something, big set of characters, and he's like, do you need these many, like, for what you're doing and what's happening in the story? It'd be too convoluted to describe now the whole story of it. But I was like, I disagreed, right? I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I thought about it. I was doing my rewrites, and it stuck with me, right? They preface it as well. They're like, you don't have to take what we're saying, but just like they know what they're talking about, basically. So when I was rewriting, I was like, you know what? I was so kind of adverse to it at first, but I was like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. I did have too many characters. I removed some characters, and it fixed a lot of the problems with my script. Another thing was, I'm half black, half white. My films tend to, I guess, err on the side of called black cinema. And there was a director, the director of Nanny, and I think this is right when she was doing Sundance, and she just won Sundance, I think, or before, or maybe that year, I can't remember. And she was saying, because my film is a horror film that it takes place during the times of slavery. And she was like, we've seen black pain so many times in cinema. Like, do we need to see black pain even more? Like, not about my project specifically, but just in general, right? And I was thinking, I was like, yeah, I'm like, you don't need to see superfluous black pain in cinema. And is this what I'm saying? No, this is not what I'm saying. My themes are greater and deeper than that. That's something that stuck with me. And then the third one is, see, I'm butchering names. Christian Mungiu, right? I hopefully that's
I think it was Mungi.
Mungi.
I think it
Okay.
was Christian Mungi.
Okay.
Yeah, from Romania.
Yes. And his film, he had a film there, and there was this incredible scene. I think it was like 20 minutes long. We got to, like, this one scene, it was like 20 minutes unbroken. And of course, you have 20 filmmakers in the room. We're like, how did you accomplish that? And it's so breathlessly done. And like everyone, like, it feels real. They're like at a town hall, I believe it was. And we're like, question after question. He's there, and he's like, yeah, we did this, and that's how we did everything. And I think they had like mirrors set up to look at each, like, it was such an incredible, like, just if anyone hasn't watched, go watch it. But that was three different aspects of it. Yeah, that was the personal mentorship, the mentorship, like the of her talks, and then of the showing the screen, and then we can ask any question about, like, those are three cool aspects.
Yeah, it sounds like you got with Christian Mungi what I got with Clement Virgo, that immediate connection between, like, I just saw your movie and now we can talk about it. Like walking out of a theater and getting to directly talk to the director after, instead of just your friends, and then maybe watching a YouTube video was amazing. There is a component of applying to the TIFF Lab, which is a video pitch, and that video needs to be about 2 minutes. And this is an increasingly common deliverable for applications like this. Tell me about your TIFF Lab video pitch.
This was the first, I think, video pitch that I've done. Maybe the only video pitch I've done. I'm not sure. It is, we talk about ourselves, and like, maybe us in our filmmaking journeys, and then finally the project that we're going to do and why us maybe. Yeah. So okay, so for my first feature to save up, I worked in my dad's window factory for 2 years. I never received funding. I saved up myself. When it came time to make the pitch, I made the pitch in that window factory. I was like, this is where I saved up to basically make my movie, you know? Yeah, and it was like, I think it was like on my iPhone or something, because you can do it on your iPhone. It's not really the production value. It's not the production value. It is what you're saying. I should have watched that before, and so I could tell you more about it, but it's a couple years ago, but I remember that part of it though.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I'm going to try to figure out the tech behind this, but if I can figure out the tech, then there should be on YouTube a members only section on my channel that you'll be able to go to and watch my video. Not sure how that works. I got to figure that out. Because I think what I've heard across the board when people have seen my video pitch is they're amazed by how terrible it is. And what I mean by that is I've talked to people who have like rented a movie theater or something, and then they don't get in, and I feel horrible for them. And then they see my pitch and it's like the edits are trash. I did put subtitles on it, which I think is a clever thing because sometimes like my sound isn't great, to be honest. And some people might be watching in their second or third language. And so I think one thing I'm proud of was putting subtitles. Any pitch video I do, I put subtitles on. It's just easier to digest whatever I'm saying. Kind of embarrassing. People will say, hey, can I see your video? And it's like, they're like, this? You got in with this?
So I filmed it on iPhone 3.
Yeah, but I love that because, like you said, I think having now spoken to the TIFF people, I think they're looking to understand what makes you unique about your artistic voice. And as a like filmmaker who I guess they're just looking for something. Let's talk about your first film quickly, Vagrant. First, where can people watch Vagrant? And then tell us a little more about the making of that movie, particularly, I've called you the Robert Rodriguez of Canada because of how I think clever your approach to making your first feature was. So where can people watch Vagrant and how did you make that movie?
Yeah, if you're in Canada, it's on CBC Gem right now. So, or actually, you know what? We'll back it up to being in film school. Okay, when I finished film school, it was time to pick whether like everyone in Alberta, we have a pretty robust film industry, and there's a lot of productions like Canadian, like CBC productions and American productions, like TV shows and everything. A lot of people that I went to school with went to go work in the industry, and I decided not to. And there's two reasons. Okay, one of them's terrible. That it's like I was like, well, I'm out of film school. I don't want to work on anyone's film set but mine, right? Like I want to, which is terrible. But the second one is that, and this was a piece of advice that I wish I remember who said it to me, but it was pretty simple, that it's the only way to direct is to direct. And that sometimes when you go and you work in like the field and this is obviously not for everybody, because a lot of people do tons of different things on film sets and they direct whatever. So that's not necessarily it. But sometimes when you go into the film industry, you might get complacent in what you're doing. And then you might, 2 years turns to 5 years, turns to 10 years, turns to 20 years, and you maybe have never directed. So I was like, okay, if I go work in my dad's window company, there's not going to be one single day where I'm not thinking about, directing, and I'm not going to feel complacent that I'm on a movie set. And I'm also not going to feel jaded, or I'm not going to feel disillusioned, right? It's like I might go on a film set and maybe just seeing how chaotic and hectic, because the first movie I made, if you told me the amount of work that goes into a movie, I might have been like, oh man, like that's like, but I went into it so naively, right? Like I'm telling you, I worked in 2 years window factory, saved up the money, went out. We have a very small crew, had to find the actors and everything, which was very hard as well. My mom is in the movie. My brothers are in the movie. Like my dad, we had to there's like a scene at the beginning where it's taking place in the 80s on like a handheld camera, and my dad has an iPad in it. He's taking a video while we're making the movie. I'm like, Dad, I cut that out of the movie, right? His laugh is still in the movie, but he's cut out of the movie. But sorry for going on this tangent here. Yeah, I was like, that was a good piece of, it was like, if you want to direct, you have to direct. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it this way and we're going to see what happens. People are like, man, like that's like a huge risk. I would never do that. Why would you do that? But it's like, if I wouldn't bet on myself, how could I expect other people to be like, yeah, like give me all this money, give me $5 million and then, I don't really trust myself. I would never do it, but like, you're going to lose your money. But, no, right. I went out there and like, you feel like it's like, you have this, it's like this need to make movies. It's like, I would have made a movie even if no one ever watched it. So just to go out and do it, and I don't know, it's fulfilling. Everybody out there, go make a movie. You know, it's the nothing else comes close. Nothing.
Let's talk about the numbers to really put this into context. Your film was made for roughly 40K. And I think a lot of people, well, first of all, again, congratulations on working in a window factory long enough to make $40,000 and then betting on yourself and investing that in this film. It's incredible. The reason I often compare you to Robert Rodriguez is because if anyone's read Rebel Without a Crew, he was known for participating in medical studies to fund his movie El Mariachi. And so I see the comparison there. And I think a common misconception when they hear that you made your first feature film and sold it, which is amazing too, for $40,000. I think the misunderstanding or the assumption is that you must not have paid everyone or must not have paid anyone, right? It's like, oh, you must have spent that all on an Ari Alexa and and this and that. Like you must have spent all this stuff. But what I also really love about this case study is no, you almost every dollar in that film was spent on people, the people that made the film, whether it was the cast, the crew, etc. Right?
Now that I'm thinking about it, it was around 30 grand total. It was 20 grand, I think, when the movie was nearing its finish. But you need money for lawyers, for like the entertainment thing. You need money for all these different miscellaneous things to get, like you need for your DCP package and stuff like that. So I have friends in there that they were just, I'm like, I need you in the background, or I need you doing this, doing whatever, right? And they're like, okay, we'll do it for free. And I was like, awesome, great. My friends are just gonna do this for free, right? And then the time came when we're putting it together for, distribution. The lawyers are like, no, this is not a binding agreement. They can't just say, yeah, we're gonna. So like, you got it. But they signed the contracts. So like, you need to go back with these contracts and give them all $1. So there's at least an exchange. I was like, what? I'm like, they don't even. So I remember going to all my friends' house and I'm like, hey man, can you sign this again and take this dollar? And my friend's like, man, I don't want to. I'm like, you have to. He's like, I don't. I'm like, you have to. I'm like, I'm not leaving here until you sign this. So he signs it and he exchanges the dollar. But in terms of all the crew and all the actors and stuff, yeah, they're getting paid. Like it wasn't an insane amount of money, but it wasn't nothing. I never got paid. But I mean, it was good for for 20, 30 grand,
Yeah, I think people hear that I got a $60,000 Canada Council for the Arts grant, and I think people underestimate that it's like if you have 30 people on set and everyone gets paid ACTRA independent production rates at $250 a day for 3 days and 30 people, it's like 60 grand's gone as soon as you pay people.
Therein lies the problem right there. So I remember we tried to get our lead actor to come from ACTRA, and ACTRA, which is the union out in Alberta, and they were like, okay, but you need to pay them all, the ACTRA rate to get them. So it would have tripled my budget. So instead of having a $30,000 movie, it would have been a $90,000 movie. So I was like, no, I can't find it. So I actually had all the actors, all the equipment, all the locations, everything in place except for my lead actor. And I was freaking out and I was like, oh, what am I going to do, right? It was 2 weeks beforehand. My mom's like, don't worry, you'll find somebody. And then finally, Luke, the lead actor, 2 weeks beforehand, we got him. And it was, and that's the reason being is that people are like, what? Like you can't find somebody? The reason being is because the script is written for a black man. It's a black family. And in Calgary, it was very difficult to find someone of his age and that was to act, I guess. Like we found younger black men, but no, not really older black men. I had a casting director told me, she's like, yeah, if you just change him to white, we'll find him tonight. And I was like, I can't. My mom was like, she was so offended. Even she's like, you can't, like, this is, you've wrote this story this way. I'm like, yeah, don't worry, mom, I'm not going to. But it was stressful. I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? And then 2 weeks beforehand, he came in. Yeah, rest is history there.
Amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the challenges of casting BIPOC talent because I tried to make my casting colorblind on my last movie by changing the names from Ali and Kareem, like to make them brother one and brother two, thinking that would expand my pool. But all I got were white guys. And I was like, how did this go wrong? And they were like, oh, well, if you give us the characters' names, we'll be able to cast more specifically. And I was like, no, the intention was I wanted it to be colorblind. And it went the opposite way. Casting calls just don't go out to everyone. You mentioned Calgary. You live in Montreal now. I'm very impressed by this because I've definitely previously held myself back from living my best life and even just traveling because in Canada, because we have this amazing system of funding, I think we end up holding ourselves back because where I'm like, oh, I need to be a resident in Quebec to get access to Sodec, or I need to stay in Canada to get access to Telefilm. I'm very impressed that you have moved to Montreal without concerning yourself with how this system might punish you for living your best life. You like Quebecois cinema. You came here to immerse yourself in the culture. So can you share anything just before we wrap up quickly on that move? Are you happy here? Did you even think about this when you moved? And of course, having a corporation in Alberta kind of helps and going the private equity route and generating profit from your sale that allows you to cash flow. You're kind of like, you're free because you didn't let yourself be constrained by that traditional funding system. You did it kind of the American way. Any of that? Does that make sense?
So I have a deep reverence for like the American independent way of. So for you saying you're comparing me to someone like a Robert Rodriguez, that is a huge accolade to have. If you can kind of garner anything from what we've been saying, I just dove into it, right? I'm like, where can I go next? I made this movie in Alberta and I did the TIFF Lab and I met a lot of talented people, creators, filmmakers, producers, writers that lived in Montreal. And I'm like, okay, this seems like it might be one of our creative hubs in Canada. I need to be there. So I just got up and, packed up everything. I got 2 cats, the name of my company, Dos Gatos Negros. I'm like, let's go, pack them up. And we came to Montreal. And all the things that you're talking about now, I found these out afterwards. It probably would have been good to figure it out beforehand. But after coming here and you do meetings with producers and stuff, which is another good aspect of TIFF, is that after you do these labs and everything, there's all of a sudden all these producers that want to meet you and talk to you, and you go do these things because I want to make my movie here, potentially in Quebec or even New Brunswick as well. But what you're saying is that there needs to be some sort of foothold here. This producer needs to be from here, which is good for filmmaking Quebec, but it's just something I wasn't privy to beforehand. But yeah, I just dove into it, and now I know, and I'm ready for the next chapter here, and I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this chat. I hope anyone watching who's thinking about applying to the TIFF Filmmaker Lab does. I also like to think of all this stuff as iterative process. So you record the video, you create your creative documents, you submit it. If you don't get in a TIFF Lab, you can use that to apply to Berlin. You can use that to apply to another opportunity, and you can just use it to continue making your project better. You can send that to friends and family to get feedback on and say, hey, does this story make sense? So I would encourage everyone who might be on the fence to just do it. So thank you, Caleb. Always love talking to you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.